Looking at every running back matchup for week 5 of the NFL season. Now, we do have 4 teams on a bye. We got the Atlanta Falcons, the Green Bay Packers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Chicago Bears. Starting off with the game in London between the Browns and the Vikings. This Browns defense is for real, right? They are allowing the fewest yards per game, yards per carry, have the highest stuff rate, and the fewest yards before contact per attempt. They've held great running teams like the Ravens, the Lions, and Packers in check, so I would temper expectations for Jordan Mason heading into week 5. As far as Quinshon Judkins go, he's taken over as the lead back for the Browns. Even with the Browns having the highest stuff rate since he's become the lead back, 61% of his yards have come after contact, so even when the offensive line isn't doing much for him, he's still producing. Now looking at the early slate of Sunday games, Devon Achane, must start. You're starting him no matter what. As far as the Panthers running backs go, Chuba Hubbard has been held out of practice the last 2 days. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to go. They said his calf injury is worse than it was last week. Rico Dowdle could be a nice spot start here. And then the game between the Jets and the Cowboys, 2 good rushing games going head-to-head. Both are top 12 in total rush yards and top 4 in yards per carry. Breece Hall should see plenty of receiving work as the Cowboys are top 4 in receptions allowed to the running back position. For the Colts, Jonathan Taylor has been great for fantasy owners. Obviously, he's a must-start. Aston Jeanty got on track last week with his big breakout game. I think he continues that success in week 5. Fire him up. Now, for the Eagles and Broncos, you're still starting Saquon just because he is Saquon, but you don't feel as good as you did starting him last year. Amongst running backs with 50 attempts this year, only Chase Brown has a worse yards per carry average than Saquon Barkley, seeing the 3rd worst yards before contact per attempt, having the 3rd highest stuff rate on runs this year. J.K. Dobbins, once again, being a great late round value, RB14 on the year, did see his lowest snaps in week 4 as the Broncos were ahead in that one versus the Bengals. Gave more work to RJ Harvey, who I think is a good spot start this week. They have a good offensive line there in Denver. These running backs should take advantage of that. Since week 2, Cam Scatterboo is RB11 with 17 fantasy points per game. He's taken over this backfield, especially with Tyrone Tracy out with his injury. If you got him, you're starting him. And then Alvin Kamara for the Saints, while he's only averaging 12 fantasy points per game, he's 11th in weighted opportunities. Has a chance to get right in this one as the Giants are allowing the 4th most rushing yards per game and also have the 2nd most yards per carry average. Now looking at the last matchup for the early slate of games, we have the Texans taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Woody Marsh was somebody that was closing the gap between him and Nick Chubb over recent weeks. Did that last week, is expected to be the lead back going forward, and gets a good matchup here against the Baltimore Ravens, who are allowing the most schedule-adjusted points to running backs, especially to receiving backs, where Woody Marks last week saw a 20% target share. And while Derrick Henry is not the player that a lot of fantasy owners are used to, you're still starting him no matter what. Now, that was the early slate of games. Stay tuned for part 2, where we cover the later slate of games, plus the primetime games of Sunday night and Monday Night Football. As always, thanks for watching. God bless.